This is Randolph Macias with the Uncensored Voice. Welcome back to the show. Today I have Ashton Murray running for Texas Senate. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Thank you for allowing me to come into your home to do this interview because we have some really important elections coming up and we have a chance to really make history here. So can you please tell me a little bit about yourself? What inspired you to run for Texas Senate?
My name is Ashton Murray. I am running for Texas State Senator in District 26. Some of the things that have inspired me to run are education. We have an education that, we're teaching critical race theory in our schools, whether people see it or not, whether it's publicized on the news, our border security. We have got to get our border under control. I do believe it's the federal government's job to do that, as stated in the preamble to the Constitution. But when the federal government doesn't do it, Texas has the right and the obligation to pick that up. And I think that we have got to eliminate property taxes for certain individuals. We need to take care of the elderly population and we need to take care of our veteran population. So those are the reasons that I'm running, and I feel that most people in our district really stand for.
Well, I appreciate that. When I first got back to San Antonio after being gone for about 2.5 months, and I understand I do have to make appearances at home, especially with these important elections, doing other campaigns in other states for which we made a huge victory with Glenn Youngkin in Virginia. It's so happy to be a part of history there. I want to make history here in my hometown, in my state, and everybody seems to be running for election pretty much all at the same time. This might have something to do with the end of their terms or the Senate the basic redistricting of everything going on right now. Heck, we have Bexar County Judge after 21 years. It's an option to elect somebody else.
Right.
And so I've done some interviews with that, and now I get a chance to interview you. Are you the only one running on the opposition in this race?
Yes, I am. As of right now, I am the Republican nominee. I will be making it to the general election on November 8th.
I'm glad to hear that, and I appreciate you stepping up to the plate to represent those and make some changes here. As far as I think that the Democrats have gone maybe too far off to the left. The Democrats have always been known as the party of JFK. Now, they've veered so far left of that, it might as well be called communist, Marxist party.
Right.
And I don't use that term lightly. I say it because it's the absolute truth. And some of these moderate Democrats, they don't know how to deal with it. But I'm glad we're having these elections now because the pendulum is going to swing back. And when it does, hopefully we'll have hopefully more law and order here in Bexar County and accountability. But as far as, and I'm 100% back the blue, I make no mistake about that, but I believe that certain issues do need to be addressed with getting them more equipment, more training, retention in the Sheriff's Department. I don't know if that would fall under your purview as Texas Senate, but what did you have in mind for veterans should you be elected to this position when you take office?
So right now in the state of Texas, 100% disabled veterans do not have to pay property taxes within the state of Texas. And that was something that my uncle brought to the Texas State Legislature. He was a co-founder of Texas Veterans for Veterans. But I think that we can do better. I think that we could push for 50% disabled veterans to not have to pay property taxes in the state of Texas. And I think that we can, I think we can expand the definition of veteran, because there are, gentlemen like me and you who never deployed, may not have spent 180 days on active duty, but did come when the state called them. And I think that we can expand the term veteran so that they can be entitled to some VA benefits.
Ironically, when I got out of the service from U.S. Army 19 Kilo, I drove tanks, armored crewman. I didn't even know my status as a veteran. I didn't even know to apply for benefits until 15 years after I was discharged. And I got it within 15 days. And my first check, back pay included, came on Christmas Eve of that year. And I'm like, oh, thank you, God, Merry Christmas. I should have applied a long time ago. Fellow veterans were saying, what are you waiting for? Why don't you apply?
Right.
And get your foot in the door and request to be for your disabled status. If you earned it, then it's your right.
Right.
So veterans in this district will appreciate that, and any term of service that they served, as long as they served honorably from whatever branch of service that they served in, they deserve some recognition.
Absolutely.
In the form of some legislation that would help them with possibly the taxes on their homes.
Sure.
Maybe car registration discounts. I think 100% disableds get that as well. But one thing, and I have to make mention of the man here behind you, to your right. This one this says Donald Trump, 2020, keep America great. Did you vote for Donald Trump? I presume you did, because
yes, I did, and with pride.
I'm glad to hear that. What did you admire about President Trump that kind of did it fire you up to run for this office?
It absolutely did. What I found, Donald Trump was a man who was revered. He didn't speak like a politician. He didn't speak like a swamp creature. And I use that term because, I mean, that's what these political elitists are. They hide behind their money. They line their pockets. They don't care about their constituents. And if we really stop and think about it, that's the truth. I mean, look at Mitch McConnell, look at Lindsey Graham, look at Nancy Pelosi. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle they come from. And Donald Trump wasn't afraid to call any of them out. He wasn't afraid to stand up and say, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And I feel that because he wasn't a politician, he was a business owner, he came in with a fresh set of eyes that could see through all of the BS that we were being fed through the mainstream media, the swamp, which also includes the FBI and the CIA and the political prisoners that they have taken from January 6th, let's be honest. They are people who got charged with trespassing, and they're in prison 11 months later. There are people who are out, on bail. That gentleman who did the school shooting, he's out on bail.
There has to be a political agenda in the judiciary of whoever makes these decisions for early bail or not.
Right.
It seems like people who were involved in the so-called insurrection did not get bail, but yet people who have a rap sheet longer than this table get early release,
Right.
and then they commit crimes. Now, I can tell you this as a matter of fact, that over 150 people had died as a result of an overall statistic that I saw of the judiciary releasing criminals early.
Right.
Those are 150 people that should have still been alive, but as a result of a political policy of early release, these people, the recidivism is almost immediate. I mean, they just keep on committing the crimes, and the earlier they get out, the more
Right.
crimes they can commit. And
Right.
100 people are dead now because of that policy. It does not work.
No, absolutely.
They need to be held accountable to the law,
Yes,
and wait for a fair trial if the terms and conditions merit that they need to be in jail for the whole time,
Yes.
or at least an appropriate bail needs to be set.
I couldn't agree more.
I want to go off on a tangent here. What is your opinion on medicinal use of marijuana?
My opinion on medicinal marijuana, I do believe that if a doctor thinks that it would help their patient, I believe that they absolutely have a God-given right to try it, to fight for their life.
The reason I ask this question is because actually a majority of states now have some form of legalized use of cannabis, THC, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, and it's not going away. It's getting more prominent in multiple states. Some allow recreational and medicinal use. I think Texas is only medicinal use right now. There are certain products out there that go within a loophole, so they create products like that. But the reason I ask that question is because I feel personally, and I don't like to interject personally, on my interviews, but I think in my personal case, my dad, who had PTSD known as shell shock back in Vietnam, could have been alive today. Unfortunately, he drank himself to death, and his demons never left him to the moment he died. And I'm thinking that maybe this some type of legalized THC or cannabis product, maybe even distributed by the Department of Veterans Affairs, could save lives. There's a suicide prevention line out there for veterans all the time, and they're under strict instructions that THC is a Schedule I controlled substance, has no medicinal value at all, but it's been proven that it has over and over again. And I'm hoping that that would be some type of debate that could be held on the Senate floor here in Texas legislature.
I absolutely agree. I could not agree more. It is going to help our veterans if we could replace some of the pills and potentially the alcohol that they're consuming to fight their battles with whatever sickness they're facing, that medicinal marijuana could help. I'm going to take it a step further. I am more, I lean libertarian. I believe we should have recreational marijuana in the state of Texas. If you have the right to drink alcohol, somebody has the right to, consume cannabis. And we need to do that legally. We need to tax it. I think it's a taxable income, and I think that people have individual liberties. If they want to consume THC, that is their personal business. As long as we keep regulations on it. As someone who's 21, we keep it out of our schools to the best of our ability. I think that it would help a lot of people, because there are people other than veterans who have PTSD from domestic violence, from being a child, the domestic violence from partners. And I think that it would help a lot of people to just be easy enough to walk into a dispensary, purchase it, pay their fair share in taxes, and go about feeling better about themselves.
Every state that I've been to that allows some type of recreational use of THC or cannabis is their taxation of it funds a lot of good things. And I'm thinking Texas might be next in line to do that. I'm not for sure where the new legislature is going to deal with at this point in time. But I think it's a thing that's not going to go away. That's why I asked the question.
Sure.
And so I appreciate your opinion on that. And let's go into all the bills that looks like Jose Menendez had a. I you see something in the mail. You probably did too, because you're in the district.
I did.
Looks like 23 bills, co-sponsored or sponsored, that he said were passed into law. I see that maybe some of them are good, and maybe some have an agenda. I have no idea. But I didn't really see anything about COVID-19 or mandates, other than allowing people to work remotely as a right under Texas law. I think that maybe being in a workplace with brick and mortar is helpful to an employee when they go to work. I don't think they should be using an excuse to work remotely forever. But I think that something more should be done. What is your opinion on masks and vaccine mandates? And God knows, hopefully we don't get vaccine passports here in the state of Texas, because other states do have them. Mm-hmm. And when I visited Louisiana recently, the city of New Orleans required vaccination passports, and they would deny entry to anybody who did not have them. Some looked the other way because they wanted the tourist money.
Sure.
But what's your opinion on that? Can we stop? Didn't Governor Abbott stop that already?
Yes, he did. He did sign an executive order allowing employees to not have to get the vaccine as a mandate. But where you're coming from is, should vaccines be mandatory? I don't think that they should. I think that you have freedom of choice. But I think what we're forgetting is we're forgetting the human aspect of this. You shouldn't degrade somebody for. You shouldn't degrade somebody for getting the vaccine, and you shouldn't degrade somebody for not getting the vaccine. It's a personal choice that they have. We're Americans. That's the excuse that anybody should have for either getting it or not getting it. You're an American. Mask, it's the same thing. If you want to wear a mask, if you feel that it makes you feel safer or you're protecting other people by wearing a mask, by all means do it. But if you don't want to wear a mask, I don't think that you should be required to wear a mask. I don't think anybody should bother you about wearing a mask. I think it's your personal decision, and I believe that that's the way we should have it in our schools. We shouldn't require vaccine mandates, and we shouldn't require mask mandates. It should be up to the parents and to some of the children who we still call children, who are 18 and older, who are in high school. It should be up to them.
And I was told, or I heard, that once the new legislature, codifies this into some type of law or bill, that he would rescind his governor's executive order. So I think he's waiting to see what the new legislature is going to do, and then at that point in time, he said that he would rescind the executive order as long as it's codified into Texas law, into our Constitution. So I'm hope this will be something that you would look at once you take office in the Texas Senate. So hopefully that's on your mind, and hopefully we can get that codified into Texas law.
Absolutely. So what I believe is that we are free individual people. We don't make laws that are for one individual. We make laws based on the entirety of what's best for our district. We represent Republican, we represent Democrat, no matter who is in office. So what I mean by that is we should never force free and independent people to do anything. It's against our Constitution, it's against our morals as a country, and we have got to get back to that root.
The thing that we're saying, well, that conservatives are saying at this point in time is something that the Democrats had used, my body, my choice. So I think that applies in this case to vaccines. And we all know that the abortion issue here in Texas has a big spotlight from Washington shining right down on it as we speak. Because if the border wasn't a big problem, if they denied that we're having problems with the border, when we passed our abortion law, which was upheld like 3 times, I think, already, and now Mississippi is going to be heard by the Supreme Court pretty soon here, there's a chance that Roe v. Wade actually will overturn. And I didn't think I would see it in my lifetime, but I'm very grateful for that. But my body, my choice. So if they want to use the argument, my body, my choice, with with respect to abortion rights, then we have the right to use my body, my choice for what we put inside of our bodies, especially if we feel it has not been researched enough.
I think that you shouldn't have to do any medical procedure that's irreversible simply just because you don't want to. You're an American. You shouldn't be forced to take any, inoculation. You shouldn't be forced into any medical procedure that you don't want to. A lot of people are talking about the Nuremberg Code, and the Nuremberg Code actually does talk about, you can deny medical treatment. You have the right to do so. And being told if you don't get this inoculation, if you don't get this vaccine, you don't eat, you don't work. It's not only against the Nuremberg Code, it's against the Constitution to tell somebody that they don't have the right to work and they have to take a medical procedure that they don't want to take. The Founding Fathers never came together and said, what can we force the American people to do? It was always, how can we allow the American people to remain free and independent and a sovereign nation? And, Thomas Jefferson also helped incorporate the Bill of Rights. And in the 10th Amendment, it gives states' rights. And the federal government has completely trampled on states' rights. And it's something that we have got to take back. If we have to take it back because they're not going to give it back. And
what I'm picking up from the U.S. Constitution, and I know the Constitution, not in its totality. I mean, I need to do a lot of reading on it, on scholarly kind of interpretations. But we have the right to exercise our religion. Yes. We have the right to own guns. Our Second Amendment rights are very precious to us.
Absolutely.
Without our guns, I don't think we would be in the position that we are now.
No, we wouldn't.
I think that the government probably would have overtaken us by this point in time.
Without a doubt.
And so they chip away at the Second Amendment over and over and over again. But when Texas chips away at the Roe v. Wade, say the 6 weeks threshold, right. Oh my gosh, all of a sudden Merrick Garland is saying it's unconstitutional. Well, what about what you've been doing to 2A for the longest period of time? Nobody talks about that.
Of course.
And so they can't have their cake and eat it too, is basically my point.
And I absolutely agree. But here's something else that a lot of people don't really look at. Roe v. Wade was not a compromise. It was a court ruling. There was no left and right. There was no Republican or Democrat arguing about where we can compromise on abortion, where we can compromise on women's rights. It was a court order. And they said, this is the right of a woman, period. No legislation was involved. So when Texas and Mississippi and other states challenge Roe v. Wade, what they're trying to do is compromise, which they have absolutely every right to do. But when we talk about the Second Amendment and we talk about the Constitution, we talk about the Bill of Rights, that was negotiated over. That was debated over. Those were elected officials who got together and debated on how they were going to set this up. The Second Amendment the argument has been settled. It was settled in 1787 when they ratified the Constitution. The argument was settled. It was done. Now, if you want to appeal it and you want to get rid of it, I mean, by all means, have at it, but you need to call a convention of states, and you have to have 2/3 of them vote to amend the Constitution, which right now they know that they don't have. So what do? Like California, Governor Gavin Newsom says, well, if Texas can make the abortion law at 6 weeks, you can't have an abortion, then we can ban guns outright. That's his argument.
So it's a very irresponsible argument, and I think about 80 to 90, 95% of Americans probably are fully armed and fully ammoed up on this, and for which is all right. But I think he's just kind of a crybaby in his state, and I'm sure you know this, but I looked at a statistic recently, and it looks like 1.1% of California is depopulated, and 0.7% of Texas is getting populated. So that tells us that Californians are moving to Texas.
Absolutely.
And the same goes for Florida.
Yes.
Florida's getting all of New York at an even bigger scale. And I was in Florida, and I felt like I was in New York. Yeah. Everybody has a New York accent for the Northeast Seaboard. And so there is a mass migration of people leaving these states for a reason.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. Let's be honest here. California, and New York and Chicago, these places are dumpster fires. You can look up the article where there is a human fecal matter map of San Francisco, and it covers the entire map. It's become a human toilet because of the people who are running it. And you don't see that in the state of Texas. Even in some areas that are deep blue, you don't see that because we have a more conservative government that would not allow that to happen. But in California, you're blue all the way through. And people are starting to realize, I pay some of the highest taxes. It's extremely difficult to live here. And they're allowing crime to run rampant and allowing homelessness to run rampant. So what do? They leave to places like Texas, who are base states. They come to Texas, they come to Florida, they come to all of these states that are red because they're tired of living in these deep blue areas that are just socialist, communist, pardon my French, shitholes. Yep. And they're leaving. And we can see it. We can see it because California, for the first time in its history, has lost an electoral college vote from 55 to 54. New York lost an electoral college vote. So did, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, Illinois. And Texas gained electoral college votes. Florida gained electoral college votes. We are gaining House seats in the state of Texas and in Florida because people are leaving in a mass exodus. And it's not Democrats, it's Republicans, it's conservatives. Those are the ones who are leaving.
I was going to ask you about that because I talked to a Californian who had recently migrated to Texas. And I had assumed that they were Democrat, but they said, no, we're not Democrat, we're Republicans.
Oh, yeah.
We want out of this state. We're done, we're through.
Right.
And so maybe the Democrats are enjoying wallowing in their misery in their poorly governed states. But the people who are moderate to right wing are getting out of there because there's just no place for them there. And the states that they're leaving are just, well, they're going to hell.
Right. And I mean, we are welcome to Californians and New Yorkers and people coming here who want to live here and to have freedom and to get away from tyranny. But don't come here and vote the same policies and the same people into office that you were doing over there and then complain. There was a gentleman, they wrote an article. He was from New York, said it was too terrible. The policies weren't working, moves to Florida and then says the policies here are terrible. We need to change them. Well, why didn't you just stay where you were living? You come here for more freedom. You come here for liberty, for a country to stand up for, a state to stand up for your liberty and for your rights. So why would you leave if you're going to complain about the more liberty-minded policies?
Exactly. And getting back to Senate District 26, what do you think is needed right now in Senate District 26 at this point in time? Too much of the old tired policies?
Well, so Northside Independent School District actually pulled a bunch of books from their libraries that were they were sexualized. I think that's a big thing that we need to focus on. Nobody wants their kids to be sexualized. They don't want their children to be indoctrinated. They don't want their, children to be taught morals by the school. It's the parents' job to teach the children morals. I mean, we have kids that are Muslim. We have kids that are Christian. We have kids whose parents are atheists. We have kids who are Buddhist, who are Jewish. They each have their own set of moral beliefs. It's not the school's job to teach that. It's the parents' job to teach the morals to these children. So I think that's a big thing for our district and District 26 is education, telling the parents that the state of Texas does not co-parent your child. Another big thing, we have a large elderly population here. We have a large veteran and prior service population. We have got to start eliminating some of the property taxes for these veterans and for these elderly people who are on limited income. And instead of continually giving out money and forking out money to people, we can just allow them to keep more money in their pockets.
What you said also brought me to another talking point. CRT, critical race theory.
Absolutely.
Now, when I was in Virginia doing the Glenn Youngkin campaign, that was a big deal because the opponent, Terry McAuliffe, told parents, you don't have the right to
Right.
tell these people how to teach.
Right.
And that, I think, was a deal breaker in the state of Virginia.
I think that really,
Remember
honestly,
Loudoun County?
Yes, I honestly feel that was the final straw. I think that's when the Democrats lost in Virginia, when he came out and he said, as a parent, you don't have the right. No. Here in the state of Texas does not co-parent your child. Your child was a gift from the Almighty to you, not from the state of Texas. State of Texas is not your child's parent. You are. And another thing that I wanted to talk about was, critical race theory. I know a lot of people think that, critical race theory is just teaching history, how history happened. It's not. Teaching, what I support is teaching history, how it happened, the good, the bad, the ugly. I don't care. I would never advocate for teaching history in a false light, ever. Critical race theory is supposed to be put into praxis, okay? And it is segregating children. It is, telling people, if you're a different color, if you're a different race, you are to be treated differently. I think that is evil. I think that is Nazism. And I think it does not belong in our schools and in our education. Each child is a gift from God. They need to be treated as such. And each child is equal under the eyes of God and under the eyes of the law. And they need to be treated as such.
What I'm really concerned about is, and this goes to a federal level, but it could affect the state level as well. A lot of parents are being dubbed as domestic terrorists because they're holding their elected officials to account in ways that make the school boards uncomfortable. Now, I've been to some school board meetings locally here in San Antonio, and they're not so nice as far as when you challenge them in any way, shape, or form.
Sure.
They serve the parents in that district. It's not the other way around.
You're absolutely correct.
And so it's been a big source of contention, and I don't know if CRT is gaining any prominence in the state of Texas. I don't know. I haven't heard any Democrat officials talk about it in support of it, or maybe they're just staying silent.
No, but I do have evidence that it is being taught in some of our schools.
Particularly in your district?
Not particularly in my district, but very close to my district. This is within the San Antonio, Austin area, within that radius, that it is actively being taught.
And does anybody challenging that you know of, bringing it to prominence in any way, shape, or form? Is it making news?
It's not, unfortunately.
Because the mainstream media is in charge of the news.
Of course. that was an answer that
I guess I answered my own question. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why I'm here to talk about things that people don't want to talk about, or things that they refuse to talk about.
But I can send you that evidence if you'd like it. It's from a source, from a teacher who took a picture of and she was a Democrat and she was enraged. Yeah. Because, it really does teach racism. It teaches children to be treated differently based on the color of their skin. And that is evil. And we know it to be evil.
100% evil. And you notice how most of this started during the Biden administration. It's been, I think what the Biden administration was doing was they were throwing everything they could at the wall, cancel Donald Trump completely. But there's a procedure for making these changes under the law. And as a result of that, for example, and I'm going off tangent, but the Stay in Mexico policy, the Biden administration did not do it properly, and they violated a law called something about a Certain Procedures Act. So based on the violation of that law, the Stay in Mexico policy was re-implemented. Now, the Biden administration is taking their time on doing that, re-implementing, but they finally, conceded that maybe they need to do it, because there's just too many people coming in. Mm-hmm. Let's switch change gears to the border issue going on right now. It looks like almost every other week we have a different country of people trying to go through our bridge. Most recently, I think it's Cuban Americans and further South Americans, but mostly it's been El Salvador, Honduras, Colombia. Now it's Cuba, and
there was the Dominican Republic as well.
And the Dominican Republic, and I heard we even received warnings from the country of Panama that they were coming in, but the Biden administration ignored that.
We very much so did. They did warn us. They told us that we had a giant caravan headed our way. And we just sat back and, allowed them to come. But border security is extremely important to me, okay? And I'll tell you why. My wife, she is Hispanic. Her family on both sides are from Mexico. They came here legally. They migrated here legally. They did the right thing. They wanted a better life for themselves and a better life for their children and their children's children. They did it the right way. But the issue is we have so many drugs, so many, cartel and gang members coming through this country, and we're not vetting any of these people. We have no idea who they are.
Well, Jim Psaki said that they were completely vetted, so maybe we should circle back and find out if that's really true.
Yeah, which is it's absolutely not true. If you look at the crisis, if you look what's actually going down, especially in Del Rio, there's no way you're vetting these people. There's just no way. There's no physical way you're doing it. But border security is extremely important to me. I have my brother. He was in the National Guard. He was down at the border mission. And then I have my sister who's down on the border mission. They take protecting the Texan people extremely seriously. Many
Texas lives are at stake, but ultimately we're all Americans. American lives are at stake.
Absolutely.
But the Biden administration is salt and peppering them all over our country as we speak. A little while back, I had an interview with Midland County Judge Terry Johnson, and it's a strong conservative area. It's oil, as you well know.
Right.
But he had told me that he found out on Fox News that people were coming to his county. Now, he's the highest elected official. You'd think that they would give him a heads up. So he called the feds and asked them, hey, what's going on? I hear people are coming to my county. They said, oh, don't worry, Judge. They'll be here in a couple of weeks. Sorry we didn't tell you. Well, they ended up showing up that same night in his county at the Cotton Logistics man camp, and they turned that into I call it a Biden detention center. But I did a lot of stuff, a lot of work there. I did a lot of video. I was harassed a bit by DHS. Because of course I'm wearing my Trump gear and I have an American flag, and basically I'm saying this is my country.
And they assume they're the ones that are telling you that because you voted for Donald Trump, because you're a Republican, because you believe in America First policies, that you're a domestic terrorist.
And I felt like I got they ran my name, they ran my car, they ran everything, and they didn't talk to me because I think that's a strategy with DHS. But I knew that this was under the purview of a different administration. It probably would have been a lot different under the Trump administration. But I felt that the information had to get out because it's happening right now.
It's happening right under our noses here in the state of Texas. There's been multiple times where 18-wheelers have been stopped and they open the back and there's a bunch of illegal immigrants back there being treated like cattle, being treated horribly. Right now, the Biden administration is the #1 human trafficker.
Well, 100%. The blood is on his hands.
Absolutely.
And it has caused such a lucrative business, not even in our country, to the tune of millions, maybe even billions of dollars of moving people to the United States, because they're not going to be an asset to our society. They're just going to apply for food stamps and welfare and do nothing with their lives. Now, I admire immigrants that do it the right way, and they pay their taxes, they become an asset to society, they get jobs, they learn, they get educated, they graduate. It makes the lawful immigration like a joke. because now you can just come in through Mexico and everything's fine.
Right.
And it's really sad to see that happen, but it is happening right now as we speak. So I wanted to, of course, touch base on that. Sex trafficking is another major thing that's going on, not just in that area, but it's happening in San Antonio and probably in this district too.
Of course.
It doesn't get talked about as much, but are you aware of sex trafficking in San Antonio and how it's been dragging us down here as far as resources?
Yes. So I kind of wanted to, I mean, what you're talking about, yes, but have you noticed that here in San Antonio we've had like multiple Amber Alerts recently?
Yes.
And it's absolutely sickening. And most of the time when you get an Amber Alert, it's usually, one of the parents of the child took the child, but we had a lot recently, to the point where when we went to the zoo recently, and I told my mother and my wife, I said, you keep your eye on them the entire time. Because it's a scary thought for a parent. We had that little girl here. She was 3 years old. She's missing. It's sickening. As a father, it's absolutely sickening. It's saddening. I could never I could never understand and feel that, and nor would I want to. But yes, you're right. Human trafficking is something that is happening here in San Antonio, and it's bringing down our resources from SAPD, and the local FBI station that we have here.
It's becoming a big problem, and that subject has been gaining some prominence as well. So I wanted to make sure I asked you about it to get your.
We have to fight it. We have to fight it. We have to fight it head on. We can no longer allow, children or anybody to be trafficked. Right. It's modern day slavery.
100%. And you see these signs up at hotels, if you think you're being trafficked, call this number.
Right.
But I don't see any of our Democrat incumbents addressing any of these issues at all. No sex trafficking, no COVID-19 issues, no nothing. Heck, I had to blindside a San Antonio Metro health official recently at Miracle and Travis Park. They were giving vaccinations out. I said, do you think it's appropriate that you're giving cash money in the form of an HEB card and Spurs game tickets to encourage people to get vaccinations? Do you really think it's appropriate? She had no prepared response. She's been on the job for 6 months, coming from Ohio Department of Health there or something, right. Maybe local area. And within about 2 minutes left in my interview, I was approached by a PR person, and we had to call the interview off. But there's a reason why they have PR people, because they want to make sure they put out a manufactured response or a response in preparation for what I was going to ask them. But I just showed up with my camera, and boom, I had my lanyard out, and I had my business cards because I'm bona fide and genuine. And I wanted to ask real questions, and she just gave a very robotic response. And that video is on Rumble. I didn't want to put it on YouTube because I didn't want to be shut down. Right. I had a lot of stuff I talked about with vaccinations.
Sure.
But so it's happening in our city. Ron Nirenberg's thing was, we're going to give you the city you deserve. And I think right now he's turned it into a Marxist type city. And I'm hoping that some legislation with the Texas Senate and the Texas House, because a lot of people are out for election right now. I think I got 125 in my own district. I have you in my Senate district. I have Kyle Sinclair in US 20. And I know of maybe 5 or 6, 7 U.S. congressional seats. We only need 5 or 6 to flip the House. If we can do that just in Texas, that would be very impressive. But I think the people are tired.
I think so. I think that we are going to be looking at a massive 2022 red wave. Usually when you have a president, the party that's in the White House usually loses in the midterms. So when we had Barack Obama in office during the midterms, we were seeing Republicans up 3 to 5%. But right now, we're seeing the midterms for the Republicans, they're up 10 to 15%. This is supposed to be an absolute massacre. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. The Democrats have pushed nothing but socialistic, communistic agendas, telling you that you don't have the right to your freedoms, that rights come from the government, not from God Almighty, not from being, a natural born citizen. Your rights don't come from government. They come from God.
We're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Right. And so government does not give them, so they can't take them away.
That was the purpose of, and I think we need to really step back and look at the Declaration of Independence and look at the United States Constitution. I do believe that they are united in a union. The Declaration of Independence was a radical document, and the Constitution was a conservative document. But the thing is they were never meant to be thrown away. They were meant to withstand the test of time. They're as relevant. I mean, if you read the Declaration of Independence, when in the course of human events, what does that mean? That means at any given time, that is a necessary document. The Constitution is the same way. And we have got to stop electing politicians who don't care about the Constitution, who don't uphold the Constitution, and we have to stop electing people who want to drastically change the Constitution.
Well, we definitely have a swamp here in the state of Texas, and especially in San Antonio. Our city council just got more radical. And I'm glad that the governor currently is taking steps to make sure that these cities and municipalities are held to account. He has declared a sanctuary city term illegal in the state of Texas. But Austin is having some problems. You go 60 miles north and it's like a whole different world over there. It is. The police are severely defunded. There's mass retirements. Heck, we barely got Proposition B to where we wouldn't defund our own police by 0.16%.
Right, and we were the only major city to not defund our police.
And thank goodness for that. Proposition A did pass, and so with that money, they bought a hotel with specific voter authorization, which is a cesspool for criminal activity.
I'm sure.
So they made use of that Prop A really fast, but thank God our police are taken care of for the most part. And,
yes.
So I'm 100% back the blue. But what's your? I'm pretty sure you are too. Do you think that the police force here in San Antonio and other small municipalities within your district have what they need to do their policing effectively and safely with equipment that is very reliable? Do you think they need more, or do you think?
So I think the SAPD is wonderful. I've never really had a bad encounter with anybody from SAPD. But always, I was in the military, you were in the military. The biggest thing is not just equipment, but training. Train. You have to train constantly. Practice. I think that is something that we have to allow police officers to do, is practice with their equipment at all the time. I think some of the smaller areas like Leon Valley, Balcones Heights, Castle Hills, I think that those areas, I think they could probably use a little more funding because they're smaller. But again, it's all about training. I think training is one of the most important things. If you have an officer who's extremely trained at his job, knows exactly what to do because he's got muscle memory from training, you're going to have better encounters, because we don't have to train people how to interact with police. We need to train police to interact with people.
And they're all different sizes of spectrum. Those who just absolutely hate the police because of the defund movement that's been going on, naturally pushed by the mainstream media.
Of course.
I think that our incumbent Democrat office holders are very mute on this issue, and I think it needs to be addressed, but the mainstream media doesn't push them, so nobody talks about it. It gets quashed. That's why I'm here talking about it, because I want to hear what they have to say about it. I'm going to be interviewing some Democrats for some of the offices because I think what I would like is I would like to hear both sides of the story. What have you done? Why have you been silent on this? And whatnot. So I think that both sides need to have a say in this, and I think it's very important. And I'm glad that you're stepping up to the plate to do that. Now, I happen to have here Texas Senator Jose Menendez, your opponent, Senate District 26. This map looks like it includes Leon Valley, Balcones Heights, Castle Hills, Windcrest, Live Oak, Converse. Can you show? Is there something wrong with that map?
Yes, there is. This is the old district map. We have an updated map, and this is not it.
What has been changed that you think that is he kind of misleading the public as far as who gets to vote in his district and who doesn't?
I'm not going to make any allegations as to he gave a map that was an old map on purpose. It could have been an accident. I'm not going to make any allegations, but this map is incorrect. Right here, we kind of got rid of this this little foot here. We added some district over towards Converse area. I do believe up to Shirts. And then we gained some more, let me see here, in Chavano Park. And I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong here, we kind of went a little more south of downtown.
I was just, because I wanted the voters to realize that if they got this and they live in Senate District 26, that map, it looks like it's flawed. Right. And then maybe they, I guess an updated version of that possibly could be on Bexar County elections or Secretary of State
yes.
resources.
Yes.
That's exactly what your map is and exactly
yes.
who you're voting for, because they may think they live in the district, but they don't.
Right, and they may think they don't live in the district, but they do.
And the opposite way around, of course.
Right.
So you have citizens in Castle Hills, Leon Valley, Windcrest, Live Oak, and Converse. That is a huge chunk of multiple municipalities other than San Antonio. These people, they need to hear the message that you have to say, and I think it's very important that they know that you're on their side, especially with how they vote, because it looks like most of these areas tend to lean conservative, which would be a very good thing to make sure that we don't forget about those people who are added to the district, because we'll certainly make our rounds and knock on doors and stuff like that and make sure we get the message out.
Yes, we will.
But is there anything pressing on your mind that maybe we didn't cover that you want to talk directly to the voters? Maybe even the Democrat voters.
Sure. So I feel that at one point most of us would have been Democrats, especially during the John F. Kennedy administration. He did tremendous work. He did tremendous things. He wasn't a perfect man, but I do believe that he was a godly man. I believe now that the Democratic Party is not the party of the common man. I believe that the Republican Party, not even the Republican Party, but people who are America first, people who care about this country, people who care about the people of this country, I do believe that we have more in common than we do different. But I feel that the mainstream media and all of these media outlets like to pin us against each other, like we are so much different than we really are. But I really truly believe that we have a large Hispanic population here in the city of San Antonio. And the majority of the Hispanic population, like my wife and her family, they are conservative, family valued, and they are at the center of their beliefs is family. And I think that that's something that a lot of people have just come to do, is to vote Democrat. But I think a lot of people are starting to wake up and to realize that the Democratic Party today does not represent their values. I believe that America First policies represent their values. So as somebody who loves this country, whether if I do win, God willingly, I will represent you and your family. I will go up to bat for you and your family. I will not run away from Texas to DC to hide behind the political elites. I will fight tooth and nail to strike down any legislation I feel is wrong for this district. I will also stay and fight for legislation that I feel is right for this district, Democrat or Republican.
I appreciate that, because a lot of people are going to be checking out and being informed, and I'm glad that I'm able to be a conduit for that, to allow information to get out that may not otherwise be reported on at all. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And
thank you for having me.
Definitely going to have my vote because you're in my district. And
I appreciate that.
It looks like I have a lot of doors to knock on here, but they're getting stacked up here. But I'm a precinct chairman with the Bexar County GOP, and I want to make sure that everybody's informed of all the candidates that are running in my precinct. And of course, in any other adjoining precincts, such as District 26, District 20, and District 125.
Right.
This is my little nook of San Antonio and Bexar County, and I think it's very important that the voter is informed. So with that, yes. I just want to say this is Randolph Macias with the Uncensored Voice. I appreciate your time, and thank you for your viewership. Thank you for your listenership. May God bless America and the great state of Texas.
Thank you.